The Kimono Cabinet was intended from the very beginning to push me as far as I could push on materials and techniques and design. An unbridled piece, as my mom would have said years ago. Wood from even the opposite side of the same tree, even from the next board over from a different cut, has an entirely different personality. It was really a much more all-encompassing, all-devouring project. It feels like it kind of changed me a bit. It's certainly one of the things I'm most proud of ever having made. There are pieces from the Kimono Cabinet, for example, this ebony veneer. There's a mock-up of the handle I've kept. There's the template that I made the brass hinges with that had to have a very precise template and jig for routing and shaping them. I've still got that. So there are certainly bones in the boneyard from the Kimono Cabinet, and it's really, really wonderful to open the drawer in my bench one day and stumble across one. Of course, my memories go flooding back to Kimono Cabinet and how it kind of overwhelmed my life for a while, but overwhelmed it in a wonderful sense. By 1993, I had already been commissioned to build dozens and dozens of pieces of furniture for a remarkable couple here in the Seattle area. One day, the wife called and said she wanted a special piece for her husband. There would be no limits to my imagination for what it could be, no limits on the cost, and not even any time restraints. Never before and never since have I ever heard of such an amazing request. I was immediately grateful for so much trust, but responsibility for what lay ahead felt enormous. Sketches after sketches of possibilities. This one, for some reason, really appealing to me and being the first breakthrough in what I thought I would do. I don't know where the image came from. Mostly it came from that curving, bending stroke from the signature table. I did something else I've never ever done, and that's actually build a little mock-up so I could see how the curve would work. How I chased the curves around the cabinet and then had to locate different points in space for the hinges. So now I have a drawing and a pokey little mock-up to be working from. But this particular piece, the Kimono Cabinet, for some reason it feels like, as I said, it was almost a year, a little over a year that I worked on this, and the intensity and the concentration and the focus was there every single day. Discovering the design as I go along, rather than creating one out of the blue and just trying to adhere to it. It's interesting because I was a calligrapher when I was very young. Really am seduced by that flow of ink, that curve, that taper from the J stroke from many years ago. That bent, tapered form, which originally just showed up when I signed my name once, and then became the inspiration for what I call signature table. Light is the most valuable source of information when you're a furniture maker. Absolutely so when you're a designer, absolutely so when you're a furniture maker. Here you see all the parts for the
drawer fronts, all quilted maple. Each one of those cut and numbered and kept in order, so they go across the drawer bank.
There was really a lot at stake. There was a lot of money at stake in terms of expensive materials like ebony. This is kind of fun because not only is this a piece of Macassar ebony veneer, this is actually a piece of veneer left over from the Kimono project those years ago when it was built. Some people say Macassar, I say Macassar ebony. The Macassar ebony is much more dramatic. It has these coffee and black stripes. The other ebony that's more famous and more expensive is called Gabon, but it's so jet black, it often looks to me like a piece of maple that's been dyed with shoe polish. I find this Macassar ebony much more dramatic.
Black stripes inside it there. These will be some of the back panels here. Let's see some of the beautiful creaminess in the black here. What I'll be doing is taking just a straight edge and the hand plane, a very, very traditional old way to do it, but actually still the nicest, cleanest way to get a good edge.
I decided I would bend them and taper them. I built a very simple but very accurate tapering jig, which allowed me to put the panels on these jigs and run them through my planer and get them to start tapering at exactly the certain point on the panel where I wanted the bend to start, and taper down to exactly a certain dimension at the end.
The veneers then had to be laid over the substrates already banded, and they were cut only a 1/16 of an inch bigger, because if the veneer was much further over the edge like this, then the pressure of the vacuum press would have pressed this down over and lifted them up here and left not a good bond here for lamination here. And if, of course, if they're too short, that's no good because they don't cover the piece. Held in place by tape, slid in, the bag sealed, you saw the process, and the whole press starting to pull down because we're holding and shaping and moving these pieces around. And there's the top, there are the two sides, and then the two doors, plus all the inside panels had to be done this way. And out of the 7 or 8 pressings, every single one of them pulled off. Whew, just really well. The most exciting part of the project, really, in terms of being nerve-wracking before that. Here's a section through the door, one of the offcuts. You can see the bends in the doors from this angle. These also were a real experiment, and really, really pleased with the results. What you're seeing in this strip of wood here is in the very middle, you're seeing 1/2-inch balsa
Core, I believe it's called, and they were, I think, 4 by 6 sheets of plywood, except for traditional plywood has all the grain running along the length of it for strength. And in the balsa core, the direction of the grain is across the piece of plywood, the short direction. And the reason for that is this is meant to not bend. It's meant to be stiff. And these sheets were meant to flex and bend and curve.
And the result is that they're light as a feather, which they need to be because these doors are enormous. And even with these nice brass hinges I'm making, the doors would weigh a lot. And these are like feathers. Risky and very well worth the risk. And there you see the result of that. There's one of the doors there. It's already been all prepped, bent, veneered, banded, everything. And inside the doors, in this lower right-hand corner and the upper right-hand corner of the door, are mortised into them solid maple tenons, so that later when the brass hinges are mortised into the doors below, the screws go deep into the solid maple, not into the balsa, so they're double reinforced inside there for taking all the weight. There you can see the sort of the compound curve that's will be the shape of the doors. You can see the ebony banding on it, and you can see the way the door arcs and bends. And I'm hoping they'll be as beautiful as, well, I'm hoping they'll be beautiful. Well, I guess I got what I asked for. Here we are now, middle of June. Been working on this 5 months. I've got stacks of timber parts for the timber doors. There in the background, I've got a tired bat that's still guarding the shop. I've got ebony panels and doors and tops and sides, drawer banks in the middle there. Secret drawers laying on the floor, which I've been working on the last couple of weeks. Drawer fronts and sides are ready to be dovetailed, which I'll start on the next day or two. And my whole shop laid up in parts.
When I was younger and beginning my furniture career, it was very important to me, or even exciting to me, when pieces pushed me and challenged me. Well, of course, with that comes a certain amount of anxiety. Am I going to be good enough to make this piece? Am I going to make my clients happy? Some people claim that's not important to them, but that's of paramount importance to me.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted a challenge. And when Ruth and I first started talking about this project, we decided that this had to be the project to end all projects. That's the frustrating thing. Here I am in June. It's June 17th to be exact. Cabinet's still in pieces. There's been all this prep work, prep. Getting all the pieces, all the secret drawers have to be planned out, all the timbre tracks have to be planned out ahead of time, or they don't fit in and I can't build them once the cabinet goes together. So starting tomorrow, the whole cabinet starts to be assembled, and in very short order, all this work that looks like nothing yet will suddenly be a cabinet, and I'll know for the first time whether it's the piece I wanted to make for Greg or the piece I hope to make. It's kind of strange because I haven't seen him in a while, but it's kind of like he's sitting up there watching me all this time. The goal of the piece was to make something as very splendid as I could. Another problem I've run into with the cabinet so far, locating hinges that will let the doors open from here and here, that they're set back in. So what I need to do is make what's called a knife hinge. Actually, they can be bought, although I don't think the commercial ones are very nice. They don't make the kind I need to make this big swing that this sort of dramatic overhang creates. So what I'm going to do here is I bought 1/8" sheet brass, and I made a little pattern calculating the amount of swing I need from the knife hinge to bring the cabinet door out and around. So as this piece pivots, brings the cabinet door out and around the edge of the cabinet. And what I need to do now is just take my little template here, scratch it on the brass like this, very carefully. And then I've already gone ahead and made my knife hinge pattern, and the brass pieces will be sitting in here like this. They'll be pre-bored for all the screw holes, and the screw holes will actually hold it into the pattern, and I'm going to use this pattern to actually shape it on the router. Where the piece of brass will be sitting in like this, slightly oversized, and a carbide tip router bit will be traveling along here and milling this to exactly the same shape as the pattern. Where the hinges have been routed, they get quite a nice finish from the router. They've been bored for the screws and countersunk so that the screw heads will fit perfectly flush. And they've been bored for a 3/16" pin in here, which is a very tight fit and will make very nice, tight, accurate hinges. And the only thing left really to do now is to clean these edges up a little bit more like this, so the marks on the side of the hinge will be taken off, and they'll be glassy smooth like this. Then all the cabinet doors will be mortised individually. Each one is lettered, is matched exactly. I've got a set here. Pin will be driven in it very tightly, and the hinge is now knife open like this. Late June, it's 95 degrees today. A great day to be working in the shop. What you've been seeing now is marking out, routing out, and now carefully chiseling out for putting in the knife hinges that we've been making by hand. Cabinet is finally starting to be glued up. This is the first panel, the bottom and the middle panel being glued up. Baffles being glued in now for the timbre fronts. It's all backlit now, so you probably can't see it anyway, but coming together. Won't be long now. Still hot. final cabinet construction is getting really quite close. The last thing to do, of course, is join on the top, fit the back, fit the door, fit the Thames, fit the drawers, fit the hinges, fit the shelf, make the hardware. Like I said, I'm almost there. Oh, baby. Little last minute fitting of doors. Hard to get just right. They'll look even nicer when they're cleaned up. Each drawer has to have its own template made because it's a different shape and none of them are square. So a template has to be made to follow the pattern of each drawer bank. And then the drawer will be made to fit that template. I'm marking out here by hand the half blind dovetails that will mark the front of the drawer. The knife lines are cut to match the half blind dovetails on the front. If they don't work, I'm in big trouble because as you can see, there's the drawer bank on the cabinet. And all the drawers going across were cut from one board of curly maple. So if I cut the first drawer well, and then I blow the last one, I've got to throw them all out. As I get deeper and deeper into the project, it gets to be riskier and riskier. There's the drawers all dovetailed, all put together, not glued up yet, but the front curve obviously now sawn into place. They've all been sanded, polished, planed individually, cut to length, and I've also built a jig here for laying the pieces individually, cutting the tenons, and then laying the canvas, and then being able to lay out the curves and doing all the carved curves on the wings under the door of the cabinet. Each one of these has to be individually spoke shaped. And then matched with all the others. I don't know if you can see the jig, the way it waves out, but each one has to be made so with a different wave. There's no jig I can make for it because the wave comes down and through the cabinet and fares out and disappears as it comes out of the cabinet.
The whole purpose of the waves, the whole purpose of the cabinet was to create a movement of light across the surfaces. The idea was to have the light come wash across the cabinet, down this curve, and across the side of the cabinet. And the light would bend sort of in this compound, complex, hopefully a little bit magical burst of light.
Very subtle approach, just the wave all the way through at the end and the flat, and the door will come through in line in here. So when the door closes over it, there'll be a curved sort of shadow and a flat.
If you've ever looked at the ocean and the light bending off the waves and then the waves rolling, it's just a beautifully dynamic, kind of a light show.
Right now, I'm trying to make the center almost kind of breastplate or frontispiece or whatever you want to call it for the cabinet, for the kimono cabinet. Unfortunately, what I'm trying to resolve, the parabolic curve wave that cuts through the timbres in the front now has to intersect the frontispiece, whatever you'd call that, and then the tighter curve that'll run up the center of the cabinet here. And unfortunately, it's nothing, there's no machine or anything that will do this for me. It has to be done by hand with chisels and gouges to make the intersection of the wave timbre here, the wave parabola, and the tighter, much tighter arc that runs up the middle. I wanted to create sort of a hierarchy between the wide sweeping wave of the timbres and the tinier spine here. So somewhere in here I've got to locate the intersection of those parabolas. Cabinet's back together for the first time in quite a while. You can start to see the finish build up on it. I'm going to go to the other side here. See if we can't move along the side of the cabinet. Pick up some of the shine that's starting to build up on the doors. See that really sweet curve? Just going home for the day, and I turned around and took one last look. Kind of an unusual view of the kimono cabinet, and I thought I'd just take a shot of it. There's a little slight change in materials here. The handles on the front of the cabinet are going to be made out of this quarter trunk of, not all of it, but this is Gabon ebony as opposed to Macassar ebony. I want the pure jet black quality of this to contrast with the stripy creaminess of the Macassar.
My goal is to sort of shape it a bit, form it a bit, find the beauty in it, and then, as I always say, the less of me that's in the piece, the more beautiful it becomes.
Fit for the first time. Across the frontispiece, the breastplate has been glued in. You can see the wave cut in there that I've been working on. The timbre's rolling back into the cabinet. So we are getting closer. Getting very, very close now. This frontispiece is now done. Needs one more coat of shellac. Chris has got one more coat of varnish to put on. And then all the cabinets had 9 or 10 coats, each one hand rubbed. And it should be just about done. The handles are finished. You saw me making. And they just need the silver post before they're fit. Gabon ebony. The timbers are finally fit and running quite nicely.
Gluing and the glue up stage of woodworking is maybe the most stressful and gray hair inducing part of woodworking. The wrong glue up can destroy a perfectly prepared project. So dovetails, always done in the same day, so your frame of mind is on dovetails. Clamps preset, brushes already cleared and dried, drawers exploded and set out in the order they're going to go back together. And then once the glue first touches the brush, it's showtime. You don't answer the phone, you don't get distracted, you get the glue on the dovetails, you close them, you fit them, you check them, you clamp them, you fit them, you check them again, you readjust the clamps, and you check them one more time.
Viola. Woo! Wow. The doors are getting their final polish. I would say, or maybe a week from finish. Starting to look good. Now just finishing fitting drawers. Hoping to have the whole thing delivered in just a couple of weeks, less than a couple of weeks. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. I'm building the little secret lock latching pins. Don't know what you can see from there. They're mortised here so the pin will slide with a little spring. Not from a ballpoint pen, but that's the same idea. Anyways, this is the last tape. The cabinet's winding down. This is October 24th. October 24th. I'm hoping we're within about a week. All the lighting's coming together. The silk is coming together. The last little secret pins are coming together. This is it. Well, after however many months this is, final touches. Kimono cabinet's done. The videotape is done. And you won't be subjected to any more boring diatribes or tedious shots of cabinet makerdom. That's it. Viola.
When I put down my tools for the last time while working on the Kimono cabinet, I stepped back and realized that I'd put into it everything I could. It was a hugely emotional time and a very satisfying period in my life. Like a lot of things in people's lives, there are certain things, often the birth of a child or a marriage or a death, where you never stop referring to things in relation to that. Oh, that's before I had my child. That was after my mom died. And in my own little way, kimono's like that, because a lot of what I think about is, oh, that's before I did kimono, or this has happened since. So this is the sign from my business of 40 years. My business that I had when I made the Kimono Cabinet.
Hey guys, Ruth's not only done, she's done early and really well. What do we say? All right, Ruth! Woo! Okay, Ruth. Nice job.